What's up everybody, Bandit here. Now you may remember when I installed this K&N intake on my truck, and I was really impressed with it when I first put it on. However, as time kind of went on, my opinion changed a little bit. Now, a lot of y'all are probably pointing at the screen yelling, "I told you so," but the things that I claimed when I put it on are still true. I do think it sounds really great. I think it might improve performance just a little bit, and obviously the box says it does, so it has to be true, right? But I also think that it does breathe a little bit easier. It does get a little bit better fuel economy and everything like that. However, with what I use my truck for, I'm not sure that this particular K&N intake is the right option. Now, if all of my driving was done on road, I think it would be just fine, but if you've been staying with the channel for a little while, you may have seen that I don't really stay on road all that much. You know, whether I'm going out four-wheeling specifically, or whether I'm just going hunting or fishing or whatever else that I do, the truck gets a fair amount of at least dirty, dusty off-road miles, and for that reason, I don't think that this particular intake is necessarily the answer. So here is a look at the K&N Blackhawk Series intake, and again, I really do think it sounds great, and I think it looks pretty nice too. I really do like all the black treatment on here and everything else, but the problem is that this conic filter here on the end is just kind of open to any of the dust in the engine bay, and if you look around, I do have a little bit of dust in my engine bay. Now with the stock filter, it does draw all of your air from your front quarter panel inside here, and supposedly that is a cold air intake since it's sucking air from outside the engine bay. Now with this one sucking air from inside the engine bay, I'm not sure how much of functionality it actually has as a cold air intake. Now again, I do stand by what I claimed with, I do get a little bit better fuel economy with this, but overall I'm not really sure that this is the intake for me. Again, if you were driving all on-road miles, I think it would be just great, but for what I'm doing, I do think I'm going to go back to stock here, at least for right now. So go ahead and do that today. If you haven't seen the video already, I do have a pretty in-depth install video for this intake, so do check that out. But I am going to take all of this off today and go back to stock. So we'll go ahead and start by getting this engine cover off here and just lay that aside. Again, this thing really doesn't do much, so I'm not really sure why Toyota even includes it. But then there's just a couple different hose clamps here. I believe they all fit an 8mm socket or a flathead screwdriver, whichever you prefer. And you'll need a screwdriver to take your mass airflow sensor off and a pair of pliers to get this vacuum hose off. But overall, it was a really easy install and should be a really easy thing to get apart. So as you can see here, we have the entire K&N intake system completely off, and we're all the way back to the butterfly valve for the intake. So now that all of this is gone, we'll go ahead and put all of the stock stuff back on. Now all of this for the deconstruction took about maybe 12 minutes, and 7 of those minutes we're looking for this pack of Allen wrenches. And it is really nice to be home, but that is one thing that you have to mess with while you're home. You don't have your own tools. But with all that being said, I think we should have enough tools to get everything back together. So we're going to take a slight departure here from the wrenching to go over this week's news. Now the first story actually comes from Fiat Chrysler Association, and they're actually recalling nearly 2 million trucks, 1.8 million heavy-duty trucks from Ram, and they're saying the reason for that is that some of these trucks can actually slip from park into neutral or drive or into another gear without the driver actually pressing the brake. Now obviously this can pose a lot of serious problems, whether you're just driving your truck daily or especially when you're hooking up to a trailer or anything else. This is not a good situation. So if you do have one of these new Ram trucks, be sure and get that checked out, and hopefully you can get yours fixed before too long. Now another story that's coming here from FCA is some spy shots have come from actually the bottom side of the new Jeep Scrambler pickup truck, and it looks like the suspension from that truck is very similar to the Ram 1500. Now this is a really good thing, and while it might not be exactly like a Jeep Wrangler and might not use the exact same lift kits and everything else, I think it is overall a really good idea, because to compete in the truck segment, especially the midsize truck segment, you have to stay competitive and you have to be able to tow and haul and everything just as much as the other offerings. So this should be a really good option. Another news story this week actually comes from Willwood Brakes, and if you want to upgrade the brakes on your new Toyota Tacoma, or actually even your old Toyota Tacoma, Willwood is actually making a setup for this. So they're saying that you're going to be able to get new front brakes. I didn't say anything about the rear, but you're going to be able to get new, stronger calipers and the actual discs and rotors and pads and everything else. And they're saying for track use or even for off-road use, this will be a lot stronger setup than factory and be a really good option. Now that will run you about $1,700, but if you are interested, Will Wood will be sure and hook you up. Now our last story this week actually comes from Ford, and Ford will be releasing their Ranger Raptor, the small size, most off-road worthy Ford Ranger, here actually in a few weeks, the beginning of February, and that's actually coming from Bangkok, Thailand. Now I'm not exactly sure why that is, but that's also a similar time to when the Chicago Auto Show is, so hopefully we'll see some of that then. So be sure and stay tuned for that. Obviously we will be seeing some other trim levels other than just the Ranger Raptor, so be sure and stay tuned for all of that. We're still not exactly sure what engine options we're going to see. More than likely we will at least see one diesel option, but more than likely you can bet that we'll see an EcoBoost motor in there, but hopefully Ford still has that, I believe it's a 3.3 liter naturally aspirated V6 that is an option in the base F-150. I'd really like to see that engine join the Ranger lineup as well, at least for those people that aren't necessarily interested in a boosted motor. So with all that being said, let's go back to us wrenching in the garage. Got them all tight?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So one thing I failed to mention when I did the install video for the K&N intake is once you're all done, you do want to go ahead and disconnect the battery and leave it disconnected for a few minutes. And what this does is kind of reset your truck computer and everything like that. And that way, when you start it up with the new intake, whether that's the original or the K&N, it'll adjust to that a little quicker. If not, it'll take a little bit longer for all the fuel mapping and everything else to change with the different intake system. So you do want to go ahead and do this. And actually, if you're unhappy with kind of how the transmission's shifting or anything like that, a lot of times this is kind of a fail-safe. You know, like I said, whether it's engine trouble, transmission issues, radio trouble, or anything else, even on these newer trucks, just disconnecting the battery can make a difference. So we got everything buttoned back up here with the stock intake, and I think this is really going to be the best answer, at least for me for right now. So the K&N was a lot of fun. I did really enjoy using it for the time I had, and if I was doing more on-road driving, I probably would have kept it on. But overall, this project, swapping back to stock, took both of us maybe 25 minutes or so, nothing really too long, and you know, it was a pretty easy process. So hopefully this helped you out. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a fantastic week, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Merry Christmas, everyone.